History, welcome to this week's History is Lunch program, which is sponsored by the John and Lucy Shackelford Charitable Fund of the Community Foundation for Mississippi. We're in our home, the Craig H. Nielsen Auditorium and the Museum of Mississippi History and Mississippi Civil Rights Museum, and if you have not already done so, please silence your cell phones. In about 6 weeks, the Mississippi Historical Society will hold its annual meeting in this space. By the coffee and snacks, you'll find some brochures with information on the speakers and topics, as well as how to register. The session titles are Jackson State University and the HBCU History and Culture, Women in Mississippi History, Environmental History in Mississippi, and 20th Century Mississippi. And then I hope you'll come back next Wednesday for History is Lunch, when Emily Irwin Jones from Delta State University will present the Delta Chinese. Today, we are delighted to welcome Commissioner Andy Gipson, Claude Nash, Hannah East, and Jared Vardaman to present a history of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. Andy Gipson serves as Mississippi's 8th Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce. He was elected in 2019 following an appointment by Governor Phil Bryant in March of 2018. Gipson earned his BA in Political Science from Mississippi College and his JD from Mississippi College School of Law. He is an ordained Baptist minister and had previously been in private law practice. Claude Nash is the editor of the Mississippi Market Bulletin. His career with the Department of Agriculture and Commerce began on June 1st, 1990, and he has continued in the role of editor for more than 33 years. Hannah East has worked as a marketing specialist with MDAC since 2019. She earned her BA in communication with a concentration in journalism from Mississippi State University. And Jared Vardaman has worked as multimedia coordinator with MDAC since 2020. He earned his BA in communications with a concentration in public relations from Mississippi College. We'll hear first from Commissioner Gipson, then from Claude Nash, Hannah East, and Jared Vardaman in that order. But before we bring Commissioner Gipson to the stage, I'd like to invite Brother Rogers, who is the director of the Programs and Communication Division here at Archives and History, to say a few words about the close relationship enjoyed by these two agencies. Brother?
Thank you, Chris. We are thrilled to have the history of the Department of Agriculture and Commerce spotlighted today with our program. On behalf of our director, Katie Blunt, I do want to say what a great relationship we have with their department. In fact, just last week, they hosted us for a staff retreat. But even more important, they are a good partner in historic preservation, particularly with what the Department of Agriculture and Commerce is doing with the old historic armory on the fairgrounds for Hinds County. So we really appreciate the work that they are doing there. And I did want to take just a personal moment to say how I'm interested in this history. When my late father was the state veterinarian, Frank Rogers, he worked with Commissioner Jim Buck Ross quite closely. And then also he was in vet school with his close friend Lester Spell. I know his son Jason is here with us today, but he used to babysit for us when we were little kids at Auburn. But today we're going to talk about this great history, so we're excited about it. Let's get it started by giving a warm round of applause for Commissioner Andy Gipson.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate those introductory remarks, and especially about the working relationship between our two agencies. We are delighted to be a part of what you're doing at the Department of Archives and History, and we're really excited about that armory renovation. It's being used right now, even as we meet here, as a security office, and it's got a new mission from its long, long past of World War II and even before then to today. So, you know, history is important. When I was at Mississippi College, I was not only a student of political science, I think that was technically my major and ultimately my degree, but I'm a great history student as well. I love Mississippi history because if we do not learn the lessons of history, we're doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. And there's so much that we can learn. I appreciate the museums here and what you do as well. You know, the history of Mississippi agriculture, the roots of Mississippi agriculture run deep in the soil of this state. And I would say they are inseparably and forever entwined in the history of Mississippi as well as her present and her future. And so I'm Andy Gipson, your Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce, and I'm honored to be in this role for the last 5 years and hope to a few more years. And in the last 5 years, as I have served as your Commissioner at the Department of Agriculture and Commerce, we have a lot of our great people here today. There are so many stories of history about Mississippi agriculture and why we're doing things today. And it occurred to me about a year and a half ago, maybe I guess Claude, our editor of the Mississippi Market Bulletin is here, and Hannah East and Jared Vardaman, and I appreciate all of them. We were talking about some of these stories, and invariably, I think it must have been a Jim Buck Ross story that we were talking about. I'll tell one of those in a minute. There's a lot of them to go around. Commissioner Ross had quite a colorful tenure at the Department of Agriculture, but then there are commissioners since then, Commissioner Spell, Commissioner Cindy Hyde-Smith, and myself, and each one of us have dealt with different issues, but then you go beyond, before Commissioner Jim Buck Ross, and you've got some that maybe you've never heard of. You're going to get to hear about them today in the history of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. And importantly, it's more than the history of a department. It really documents the history of Mississippi agriculture. And I will tell you, as I tell people all across this state and all across this country, and as I travel the world, there's nothing more important than agriculture. It is how we stay fed and clothed and have a roof over our head, because it brings everybody together. We all have the same basic human needs. We all need to eat, we need to stay clothed, and we need a roof over our head. Agriculture and forestry do all those things. And so as we talked about the stories of agriculture and some of the history in our agency, I asked Claude the question, has anybody ever written this down? Because the time's going to come that, Claude, you're not around anymore, I'm not around anymore, and somebody needs to know what happened and why it happened. And from that conversation came this book that we're delighted to present to you, and Claude's going to tell you a lot of the details about it. But whether you go back into the time before history, before the dawn of written history, agriculture was front and center here in Mississippi as our Native Americans, Choctaws, Chickasaws, and others raised the crops that they raised, corn and beans and squash, to live off of, and raising their own food and harvesting the wildlife and the game here in Mississippi. And you fast forward to the settlement of this state and all the pioneers that came here first for the logging industry, the trees that were that big around and bigger that were harvested, and then crops that were planted. And you know all the more modern history, but you get to today and the technology and the advances that we've had in agriculture just astound the mind. You probably know, most people don't know, agriculture is still Mississippi's #1 industry. Last year we had a nearly $10 billion economic impact just with production value. That does not include the processed value, the value-added products, just farm gate value, $10 billion, and it's the largest economic driver in the state. Not only that, agriculture today is still the state's #1 employer. If you look at it as a whole, nearly 1/3 of the people who are employed in the state of Mississippi are employed in agriculture-related jobs, maybe on a farm, maybe at a processing plant. But let me give you one real-life example today, how agriculture touches everybody's life. Anybody ever heard of Chick-fil-A? Yeah, everybody has. It's the world's fastest growing chain, and they love to sell chicken, and we're so happy about that in Mississippi. Can I get an amen right there? Because chicken is our #1 business. I toured a processing plant over in Carthage a few years ago. This was before the pandemic, and they were processing birds, chickens, and they were making fillets. And I asked them, where do these chickens go? And keep in mind, they told us that on average, that plant was processing some 400,000 birds per day. All right? Do the math, 400,000 birds today. They told me that of that number, 2/3 of that number went immediately to Chick-fil-A. I said, wow, what did y'all do before Chick-fil-A? The plant manager said, we thank God for Chick-fil-A. Just last month, Chick-fil-A purchased all the equipment to fully upgrade a plant in Forest, Mississippi, and it is 100% Chick-fil-A product made right here in Mississippi, grown from our Mississippi farmers, processed in a Mississippi plant, And that plant, brand new, upgraded facility, is now doing 100% exclusively Chick-fil-A. They sent a message to remind everybody they are closed on Sundays, all right? So the plant closes on Sunday too. How about that? Whether you're a farmer, whether you're a processor, whether you are in the consumer food chain, if you're in the retail markets, or whether you're in the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A, agriculture impacts our life today in a way that has never been more important. And COVID-19 demonstrated how critically important agriculture remains, not only to our history, but to our future and to our survival. International trade is another feature of agriculture you may not have thought about, but agriculture impacts Mississippi far beyond our borders. We are a leader when it comes to international trade, and the products that we supply, we raise, our farmers raise way more than we can use ourselves, so we're helping to feed and clothe people all over America and literally all over the world. And I've had the privilege to travel to places like Taiwan and visit with the president there about their needs as a very somewhat isolated country in East Asia, and they need food, and we get to provide them food in the form of grain and chicken and other products. In places like India, the world's fastest growing nation, soon to surpass China in terms of people, they don't have enough food to keep up with their population. We can help them with that in Mississippi. And so trade deals that are being made today are because of the history that was laid, the foundation that was laid, that's detailed in this book. And so I want to mention one other thing. You know, Mississippi is a worldwide leader in a lot of things that may not make the press, but did you know we are the world's #1 producer of U.S. farm-raised catfish? How about that? Y'all like catfish, don't you? And we're known worldwide for the quality of our fish, and we're proud of that. So agriculture gives us an opportunity to show not only the history of where we've been, where we are, but where we're going. And it is a bright future. And our state is well positioned, not only to meet our own needs, but to help meet the needs of the world. You probably don't know, but the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce has our own newspaper. It is actually a market newspaper. It's a market for our farmers. Claude can tell you all about it. He's brought samples that are over here somewhere. But it is the state's largest newspaper. It's the Mississippi Market Bulletin. And you can buy, sell anything in that paper that you want to buy. I got my best squirrel dog out of that Market Bulletin about 10 years ago. And whether you're looking for a squirrel dog or fresh peas and butter beans, you can buy it there. But it is because of the publishing prowess of Claude Nash, our editor, that we have the paper. And Hannah and Jared are helping him with that and doing a great job. But we then said, let's just publish a book. And I really appreciate you doing that, Claude. Thank you for taking the bull by the horns. You know, the past is prelude. All that's happened in the past, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there's plenty of that to go around, right, Katie Blunt? Plenty of it. We can sit around and sit on our hands and worry and complain about it, or we can learn from it and make our state better. And I'm very proud to say that the history of agriculture is the same way. We can learn from the mistakes that were made in the past, and we can learn from the techniques that did work or didn't work, and here we are today looking at a bright future. But all that past is prelude of what's to come. And so we have set the stage not only for the future of food security for Mississippi, but for really a large part of the world. And we're very proud of that, and we're proud of you being here to celebrate with us the publication of this first of its kind book, The History of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. And with that, I'll invite you to join me and watch a short video. Y'all take it from there. Thank y'all.
The Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce is as rich as Mississippi's soul and as important as the state's leading industry itself, agriculture. Never before has there been a written account of the agency's vast 117-year history, detailing how the department has been the defining factor in many of Mississippi's most historic events. Now, we are pleased to announce that the complete history of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce is now available. Learn about the rise of some of Mississippi's greatest leaders, the undertaking of some of agriculture's most amazing projects, and the bright and shining future of Mississippi agriculture. Various editions, as well as an ebook version, are available to the public. Visit www.mdac.ms.gov to purchase yours today. The Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce, growing a better tomorrow.
Good afternoon, everybody. Brother Rogers, I didn't know that was your father, Dr. Frank Rogers. I thought the world of him. He was a great man and did a great for the Board of Animal Health. As Commissioner has well spoken already about all this, it was in 2021. I was sitting in his office and we were kind of just telling stories back and forth on different things, especially Commissioner Jim Buck Ross. And he said, do we have any recorded history or any documentation about our agency? I said, well, other than our annual reports that go back to the early 80s, the late 70s, I said, to my knowledge, there is none. So he looked at me and he says, we need our very own history book. I got worried for a second because I knew where that was going, but it turned out perfectly. As history is sometimes lost to time when not written down, Commissioner Gipson had a vision to record an account that would tell those after us all about the Department of Agriculture and Commerce, yesterday and today. As a longtime employee of our agency, I was honored to be charged with the task of telling our agency's history. I went to my director, Paige Manning, in the Market Development Division, and requested my two colleagues, Hannah East and Jared Vardaman. Hannah is one of our marketing specialists. She assists me every day with the Mississippi Market Bulletin. She is an incredible writer, and she does a great job at everything that she does. Jared Vardaman is our multimedia coordinator. He does all of our videography, our graphics, voiceovers, and many other duties, and he does a fabulous job as well. Now, of course, I cannot touch on every aspect of what's in this book, but I'm going to share some highlights with you today. We didn't want to write about a particular commissioner. We didn't want to write about a particular employee or a division. We wanted to show how each commissioner and their administration played a pivotal role in their leadership in the era which they were elected for. In this book, readers will enjoy learning about the progression of Mississippi's agriculture, the role that the Department of Agriculture and Commerce plays, and its 8 commissioners. The Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce was established in 1906 by an act of the Mississippi legislature. It was at that time that government leaders saw the need for a state agency to regulate farmland usage and the various industries that was associated with it. After several years of discussion and debate, a bill finally came before the Mississippi legislature to create such a new state office. The bill passed, and the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce was born. The duties of this new agency included collecting and distributing agricultural statistics from around the state, broadening state commodities, investigating crop disease, conducting soil testings, promoting and regulating the farming of livestock, poultry, and other state commodities. So the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce was officially deemed as a government body, intent on serving its citizens in the agricultural and commercial industries. It was in need of a leader. It was to be led by an elected official. The title of that would be Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce. It was ruled that the first commissioner would be appointed by the governor for 2 years. After that, all commissioners to follow would be elected in the position every 4 years by the citizens of the state of Mississippi. Now, it was difficult for us to find a lot of background and info on the very first 3 commissioners who served from 1906 to 1940, but we were able to find what we needed. So let's begin our journey here today. Our first commissioner was Henry Edward Blakesley from Pine Grove, Mississippi. That's way up there in the North State in Benton County. He served as a commissioner from 1906 to 1916. He started campaigns for the eradication of the southern cattle tick and the Mexican cotton boll weevil, which were both threatening our cattle and cotton industry here in Mississippi. During this term, a growing number of successful county fairs were held throughout the state with reports of large attendance of educational and agricultural exhibits. Following several resolutions by the Mississippi legislature, it was decided that a great fair, what originally known as the Mississippi State Fair Exposition, would be held at a centralized location for the entire state. So the State Fair Association was formed, and Commissioner Blakesley became president. After its establishment, an act was passed that permitted the State Fair Association to use the bottom lands located between the state capitol and the Pearl River. That is where it is today as the permanent base for the Mississippi State Fairgrounds. Commissioner Blakesley continued to serve as Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce until 1916, and he resigned. Our second commissioner was Peter Parley Garner of Noxubee County. He served as commissioner from 1916 to 1928. Serving as commissioner during the Great War, Commissioner Garner joined federal government officials in supporting the campaign of urging citizens to raise home gardens, which was known as victory gardens. This was to help to fight in the fight of Germany. Also, Commissioner Garner would play a significant role in the suddenly booming market in the state. The demand for milk and cream greatly increased in the early 1910s, and dairy farming became a commonplace throughout Mississippi. So the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce created the very first Dairy and Creamery Division, which was required to obtain information and inspection of dairy farms. Commissioner Gardner continued to serve as Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce until 1927, and he resigned. Our third commissioner was J.C. Holton from Kemper County. He served from 1928 to 1940. Now, I'm very partial to Commissioner Holton because he is the one that started the Mississippi Market Bulletin. It was during this era of the United States history that a single event changed the economic landscape of our country for decades to come. That would be known as the Great Depression. The Great Depression was especially damaging to farmers located here in the South, where farming was the main industry and lifeblood of local economy. At the time of Franklin D. Roosevelt's inauguration, 40% of the farms in Mississippi had been auctioned off. It was during these tough times that Commissioner Holton came up with an idea to help serve and assist the Mississippi farmer by introducing the idea of a buy and sell agricultural newspaper. This would allow the smaller farmer to sell his commodities and products without having to pay for advertising. These products that were sold directly from the market did not have established market outlets that would be such as plants and seeds and hay and poultry, machinery, equipment, and home goods. So the Mississippi Market Bulletin provided a cash market for these farm products, and the Mississippi Market Bulletin was an instant success. He planted a seed 95 years ago, and still to this day, the Mississippi Market Bulletin reaps a bountiful harvest. Now, just on a side note, on July 1 of 2018, our agency's newspaper turned 90 years old. To commemorate this impressive achievement, Commissioner Andy Gipson asked me to write an article and duplicate this original photo that we found over here at the Department of Archives and History. That was from July 1 of 1928, when the very first truckload of the Mississippi Market Bulletins was being delivered to the post office. So you can see in the original photo from 1928, standing on the left is Commissioner J.C. Holton. On the right is the editor of the Mississippi Market Bulletin, P.H. Sanders. The other photo depicts Commissioner Andy Gipson and myself. In 1940, Commissioner J.C. Holton would not run for re-election. He spent out his retirement years on his farm in Kemper County, and he died on August 10th, 1975, at 86 years old. Our fourth commissioner was a man from Star, Mississippi in Rankin County. His name was Cy Corley. He served as commissioner from 1940 to 1968, one of the longest serving Mississippi commissioners of agriculture of 28 years. It was during his years in the office he saw a substantial increase in the number of farms across the state, increased farms. Within months of his taking office, the poultry industry and the livestock sales soared higher than they had been in decades. Now, Commissioner Cy Corley is remembered for many great accomplishments, but there are two visions that he wanted to see completed as Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce. One would be the construction of the Central Farmers Market located on Woodrow Wilson in Jackson. While on a business trip in Georgia, he had heard about the success of Georgia's State Farmers Market. And after visiting that farmer's market, a seed was planted in Commissioner Corley's mind. He wanted to see a large hub built right here in Mississippi for the wholesale distribution of our state's vegetables and produce. In 1947, the construction of the Central Farmers Market began, located at 352 Woodrow Wilson Boulevard. It was dedicated, it was dedicated on July 1, 1948, and it would remain open for 5 decades. Commissioner Cy Corley's platform for 28 years in office as Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce was to sell Mississippi to Mississippians. In the early 1960s, he was given just that opportunity to do that with the grand opening of the Mississippi Coliseum. Commissioner Cy Corley, along with other ag leaders from around the state, submitted a resolution to the Mississippi legislature for a facility to be erected that would be a place for rodeos, concerts, conferences, rallies, sporting events, and crusades. Beginning in 1960, the construction of the Mississippi Coliseum was underway. The total cost for this project was $4,250,000. After 2 years of construction, the Mississippi Coliseum was completed. In January 1995, the old familiar yellow and red trim and white roof was renovated to a sleek black and copper structure. After numerous roof leaks throughout the years, an $18.5 million project changed the face of the Mississippi Coliseum. Commissioner Corley, alongside with several Jackson visionaries, had laid the foundation for the largest agricultural event east of the Mississippi River, known as the Dixie National Livestock Show and Rodeo. Today, the Mississippi State Fairgrounds hosts numerous livestock shows exhibited by 4-H students and FFA students, first-class rodeo competitions, and tens of thousands of spectators from all over as a part of the Dixie National Livestock Show and Rodeo. Throughout his time as commissioner, hundreds of people wrote and asked Cy Corley to run for governor, yet his answer was always the same: Mississippi agriculture comes first. Commissioner Cy Corley made one more bid for the position as ag commissioner, yet in 1968, the 60-year-old Cy Corley was defeated from a man in Pelahatchie, Mississippi, by the name of Jim Buck Ross. Cy Corley returned home to Star, Mississippi to live out his remaining years. And on July 14th, 1989, Cy Corley died of a heart attack at 88 years old. Our 5th commissioner was a man from Pelahatchie, Mississippi. He served as commissioner from 1968 to 1996. He was also one of the longest-serving Mississippi commissioners of Agriculture and Commerce of 28 years, and that was Jim Buck Ross. Under Commissioner Jim Buck Ross's administration, the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce would see more changes to its regulatory division, policies, programs, and divisions than any other time. In 1973, under Commissioner Jim Buck Ross's direction, the Consumer Protection Division was created by combining several existing divisions within the department. The transition would place several regulatory and inspection services under one umbrella. It was also during this time that Ross established the Market Development Division. That includes the Mississippi Market Bulletin, special promotional projects, public relations, international trade, aquaculture, photography, and graphics. Commissioner Jim Buck Ross will go down in Mississippi history for spearheading the now multi-million-dollar catfish industry. As the largest industry in our state, Commissioner Ross made sure that the agriculture industry was well represented by our agency. One of the largest contributions to Mississippi agriculture was the promotion of the poultry egg industry, the timber and forestry industry, the beef cattle and equine industry. He was a farmer and also a producer of these commodities. One of the biggest supporters of the Mississippi equine industry was Commissioner Jim Buck Ross. He continuously worked to promote the growth and importance of equine business in our state. He was instrumental in constructing 400 additional horse stalls at the Mississippi State Fairgrounds to make it possible for the state to attract national-level horse shows. Now, when it comes to the Mississippi State Fair, everyone is always curious about the origins of the biscuit booth. Well, we found out who created the biscuit booth. It was through our research for this book we discovered that Commissioner Jim Buck Ross was the actual pioneer of this. In the early 1970s, he instituted what would become a staple attraction for generations to come. Is the annual state fair was the famous biscuit booth. But his lasting legacy would forever live on in what is widely considered his greatest accomplishment as commissioner. That would be the Mississippi Ag and Forestry Museum on Lakeland Drive. For years, Commissioner Ross recognized a need for the preservation of Mississippi's culture and heritage in our agriculture state, and his dream finally came true to fruition in 1977 with the groundbreaking of the Mississippi Ag and Forestry Museum. In those final days as commissioner, Ross's priority was to have a new office building for our agency, a centralized location for all the 6 offices that were spread across the city of Jackson to come to one location. Our office building is located right across the street from here. It was dedicated on July 28, 1995. I'd like to read a quote from Commissioner Ross that's in the book. He said that my sole purpose in this job was to put more money in the pockets of Mississippi farmers, and that's what I've tried to do all these years that I've been Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce. In 1996, Commissioner Jim Buck Ross would not seek re-election. He would return to his home in Pelahatchie, where he lived out his remaining years on his cattle and poultry farm. On December 4th, 1999, Jim Buck Ross died of a stroke at the age of 81 years old. Our 6th commissioner was a man from Richland, Mississippi, in Rankin County, Dr. Lester Spell, Jr. He served as commissioner from 1996 to 2012. Dr. Spell stepped in as Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce at a critical time in both the agency's history and drastically changing world of enterprise. He had a tough road coming in because our agency had a $1.2 million deficit. He knew there would have to be major changes and restructuring of our agency. His top priority was to create an efficient and cohesive agency, and he did just that. During this time, the global technological boom of the 1990s, known as the computer age, was underway. Commissioner Spell introduced our agency into this new IT world, which changed everything and improved all of our services at the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. All of our divisions and field inspectors were cross-trained and received state-of-the-art equipment to conduct their daily inspections across the state. These divisions would include meat inspection, weights and measures, the petroleum inspection, Bureau of Plant Industry and Seed Lab, Ag Theft, and the Market Development Division. Commissioner Spell was very instrumental into numerous programs within our agency: agritourism, farm to school, Mississippi Farmers Market Nutrition Program, and the Make Mine Mississippi program. For decades, the old Central Farmers Market on Woodrow Wilson, the one that former Commissioner Cy Corley had constructed in 1947, had fallen into devastating disrepair. So one of Commissioner Spell's lasting endeavors as commissioner was the building of the new Mississippi Farmers Market in 2003, located right over here on the Mississippi State Fairgrounds. His time as commissioner would account for much of the modern advancements within our agency, yet he never lost that personal touch with farmers, ranchers, and producers across our state. After serving 16 years, Commissioner Lester Spell decided not to seek re-election. He went back to his home in Richland, where even to this day he still continues to farm, hunt, and take care of his land. In 2011, history would be made with Mississippi's first female Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce. That brings us to our 7th commissioner, a lady from Brookhaven, Mississippi in Lincoln County, Cindy Hyde Smith. She served as commissioner from 2012 to 2018. Coming from a strong agricultural background, she was and still is very passionate about agriculture. Commissioner Hyde Smith, along with her husband Mike, own and operate a beef cattle operation in Brookhaven, as well as a local livestock stockyard. There are a lot of people throughout our state that do not realize how valuable and important the word commerce means within our agency. True to her word through her campaign, Commissioner Hyde Smith was noted that she wanted to emphasize the word commerce, part of the Department of Agriculture and Commerce, and she was true to her word. Food safety regulations became a major focus for Commissioner Hyde Smith. She believed in to protect the health and economic welfare of all citizens. To ensure you're getting what you pay for at the gas pumps or weighing fruits and vegetables in a grocery store, our Consumer Protection Division is one of the most diversified divisions in our agency. It enforces retail food safety and sanitation laws and regulations. In 2015, the idea was planted to highlight Mississippi products and build markets for our state's unique products. Later in 2018, under the leadership of Commissioner Andy Gipson, this idea as genuine Mississippi would come to fruition. Genuine Mississippi is our agency's state branding initiative. It is to promote agriculture products that are grown, raised, crafted, and made right here in our state. One of Commissioner Hyde-Smith's most lasting contributions to Mississippi agriculture was her unwavering support of the Mississippi Ag and Forestry Museum. She began promoting the museum like never before, on television, through print media, and several other outlets, and before you knew it, the Ag Museum saw more growth than it had in over a decade. Yet at the height of its success, the museum faced an unprecedented challenge that would change its history forever. It was on the evening of November 13th, 2014, a fire started inside a barn and quickly spread to other buildings. As statewide and national news covered the story, the outpouring of support for the next months ahead were overwhelming. In just under 1 year, Commissioner Hyde-Smith secured $150,000 in private funds for reconstruction. As well as other donations that were received, reconstruction to rebuild started very quickly. During her tenure, Commissioner Hyde-Smith spent much time and effort supporting the Mississippi State Fairgrounds. She was such a passionate and advocate supporter of the new Mississippi trademark that we have on the fairgrounds today. She served 6 years as Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce, and on March 21st, 2018, former Governor Phil Bryant announced to appoint her to the United States Senate seat being vacated due to the resignation of Senator Thad Cochran. On April 9, 2018, she would make history once again as Mississippi's first female U.S. Senator. Our 8th Commissioner is a man from Braxton, Mississippi in Simpson County. Serving as Commissioner from 2018 to present is Andy Gipson. On March 30th of 2018, former Governor Phil Bryant announced that he would appoint State Representative Andy Gipson to the office of Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce. Being a longtime state representative and farmer, Andy Gipson is a man of many hats. When he was sworn into office on April 2nd, 2018, he hit the ground running, working on behalf of the Mississippi farmers, the ranchers, landowners, and producers. Today, only 5 years in office, Commissioner Gipson has surpassed expectations in Mississippi's agriculture industry with all of his many accomplishments and completed projects. Recognizing the importance of our timber industry in Mississippi, in 2018, Commissioner Gipson established the first ever agency's Timber Commerce Division. Following a global pandemic in 2019, he turned his attention to another sector, labor force. So he established our first ever Ag Workforce Development, Education, and Outreach Division. Also in 2019, the County Correspondent Program was launched, which provides a direct line of communication to farmers, ranchers, and landowners with information regarding about our agency as well as state and federal developments. As a growing concern with the increasing of the wild hog population, which destroys thousands and thousands of acres of Mississippi farmland every year, in 2020, Commissioner Andy Gipson started the Wild Hog Control Program to combat with this problem. With the construction of the new Mississippi trademark being completed on October 1 of 2020, the Mississippi Coliseum received new renovations as well, new seats, new railing, new flooring, bathrooms, etc. In February 2021, during the annual Dixie National Livestock Show and Rodeo, the city of Jackson lost water service during a historic ice storm, and the Mississippi State Fairgrounds was in crisis. So Commissioner Gipson quickly responded and made plans to drill and build a self-sustaining water well system on the state fairgrounds. In September 2022, the city of Jackson was paralyzed by a devastating water crisis, and the fairgrounds' new water well system was utilized to help fill tanker trucks that distributed the water all throughout the city of Jackson. For over 116 years, the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce has grown and shifted with the ever-changing times and demands of our state ag's industry. Today, the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce, along with Commissioner Andy Gipson, continually to strive for excellence in building upon the strong foundation of Mississippi's #1 industry, agriculture. At this time, my colleagues Hannah East will come up and address the writing process and the inner workings of creating this wonderful project of this book. Hannah?
Good afternoon, everyone. As Claude said, my name is Hannah, and I would like to share a little with you all about our process for writing the history of the Mississippi Department of Ag and Commerce, or MDAC. I remember going back to my desk after Claude told us the news. I was very excited about this project, though admittedly a little overwhelmed. We had to consider our daily job duties, overall content to include, and writing styles. That is, how to make a book flow in a cohesive way with 3 separate authors writing different sections at a time. And I remember going back to my desk and literally Googling how to write a book. We knew we needed a process in place, a flexible routine we could follow that would yield the best results for our busy schedules. So for our outline, we decided to go by the commissioner's administrations. We could work chronologically, section by section, chapter by chapter, based on their time in office. So as Claude touched on before, each Ag Commissioner presented their own focuses and goals, which in turn directly influenced the inner workings and evolution of the Department of Ag and Commerce. We believe we were able to draw a clear depiction of the agency throughout the years as it was seen in that moment during each era. So for each section, we followed our now established process. We researched a topic, interviewed people on that topic when possible, wrote first drafts, made edits, and then submitted revised drafts. And we kept repeating that process. Now, when I say repeat, I mean we went through those steps more times than I can count. However, in the end, it was all worth it, for we wanted to publish an accurate and interesting work that would educate the public, and we feel confident that we have done so. Now, as the most important part of any historical project, we spent a lot of time and dedication in the research phase of this process. We utilized local, state, and national institutions, agencies, universities, and other libraries. From visiting the Lauren Rogers Museum in Laurel and the U.S. Catfish Institute here in Jackson, to combing through the USDA's and U.S. Law's online databases, we chased numerous leads through a variety of avenues. In particular, we consulted with associates from the Mississippi Department of Archives and History and Mississippi State University's CHARM Library Collections. And CHARM stands for the Consortium for the History of Agricultural and Rural Mississippi. And on behalf of our team, I would like to personally thank University Archivist Jessica Perkins-Smith, as well as Senior Archivist Sean Stalzer and the entire library staff at the Mississippi Department of Archives and History for their assistance throughout this journey. Another major resource for us was the online database newspapers.com. Thanks to the guidance of our Chief of Staff, Brian Perry, who introduced us to this incredible tool, we were now able to access firsthand accounts regarding our agency from articles dating back to the establishment of MDAC. This goldmine not only provided insight to our state's ag industry from times gone by, but it also gave us direct quotes and ideas from our agency's leaders. It was very interesting to find that a lot of goals, vows, and obstacles that our agency faces today can be seen over and over throughout our history. For instance, our first Commissioner of Ag and Commerce, Henry Blakesley, introduced a program called Grown in Mississippi. This he described as a builder's movement intended to benefit every citizen of the state. By stamping those words upon our products, he said, "We are openly proclaiming to the world that our products are good and we are proud of them." You'll see in this book how over the years this concept of promoting Mississippi producers and products has taken on different names, appearances, and roles, but the core principles remain. Perhaps none so successful as our agency's current statewide branding initiative, known as Genuine Mississippi. However, my favorite quote actually comes from Commissioner Garner, our second commissioner. When America was facing World War I, Garner famously said, "It is the duty of every individual citizen to produce from the soil something to eat, for dolorous times are ahead. Let those in the fields armed with the plow and hoe be an unconquerable ally to those on the field of battle." This battle cry for Mississippi's farmers to take up the mantle and provide for the rest of our citizens is a direct quote from the Southern Herald newspaper in April of 1917. And in this book, readers will see similar circumstances that were overcome to sustain our population, from the wars of past generations to crises seen in our lifetime. Most recently, our agency stepped in to assist Mississippians during the COVID-19 pandemic. Just like the supply chain disruptions and product scarcity that Commissioner Garner addressed so many years ago, we face again today. Under current Commissioner of Agriculture Andy Gipson, under his leadership, our agency established new online markets for locally grown produce and promoted Mississippi dairy, meat, and other food products for consumers during the pandemic. And once again, our ag community proved unconquerable. So, armed with these tools and resources, we began to piece together and build the story of our agency. Luckily, I work with some of the best at the Department of Ag and Commerce, and within our marketing team, we are a very close group that works well together. Within our trio here today, we were able to play on each other's strengths, divvying up certain roles throughout this process. Claude managed the entire layout and design of the book, whereas Jared and I did the bulk of the writing. Everything else we were able to tag team. So when all was said and done, we had conducted 15 interviews, which does not include the dozens of personal accounts and knowledge provided by our past and present employees. And we would like to sincerely thank all of our MDAC directors and coworkers who assisted in this way. Together, we collectively logged approximately 30 hours at the Department of Archives and History's library, and we combed through over 200 pages of slides, scrapbooks, and photo albums from materials within our own agency. In fact, I learned exactly what a 35mm projector slide is, and I'm proud to say I now know how to convert those vintage images into a digital copy. So in the end, we visited 7 institutions, referencing a total of 41 sources. We wrote countless pages and drafts throughout the course of this book, but we finished with 121 pages seen there in the final draft. So from start to finish, that is the day we were commissioned to write a book on the history of our agency, to the day the first batch of books arrived in our offices, took 1 year and 8 months. And on behalf of myself, Claude, and Jared, we would like to thank Commissioner Andy Gipson for entrusting us with this important project. It was a labor of love, but we hope you all enjoy reading about our agency's history. Thank you. And please welcome Jared Vardaman.
Good afternoon. My name is Jared Vardaman. I'm with the Department of Agriculture. I work a lot in the videography and multimedia, social media, that kind of thing, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But let me take just a second to thank the people at the Archives and History, the department here, and the 2 museums for this great facility. Can we give them a hand today for this great event that they put on? It's a wonderful event, and I'm so happy that they asked us to be a part today. When you first heard that we were writing the history of the Department of Agriculture and Commerce, what was your first thought? Maybe it was, why? Why do we need the history of the Department of Agriculture and Commerce? I mean, you may have some thoughts about the department. You may know just a thing or two. You may have picked up and thumbed through the Mississippi Market Bulletin just a couple times. Or maybe you've seen the commissioner on TV about 1,000 times. He's on there all the time. Maybe you were just wondering, why? How much did you really know about the department before you walked in today? The answer to that is we do a whole lot to influence the state of Mississippi. And much of it I didn't even know about until I started working here. When I first told my family and friends that I was going to be working in the Department of Agriculture, they were like, man, yeah, that's great. That's a great state job. Great. What do you do? And I thought, look, I was like, well, I work in social media, all the video stuff. I went through my regular spiel. I told my friends that, and they were like, great, that's awesome. But I don't think they quite understood it, because I was introduced by one of my friends. He said, oh, this is my friend Jared. He takes pictures of corn for a living. And I was like, no, that's not quite it. While I've taken my fair share of crop pictures, the answer is the Department of Agriculture does so much more. We touch millions of lives on a daily basis. One of the members of our Ag Youth Council once said, we're a lot more than cows and plows out here And that's the truth. We are so much more than what you typically think when you think agriculture. While we promote and exhibit every facet of Mississippi agriculture, we are also tasked with the regulation of Mississippi products, making the commerce part of our name a lot more important than you think. The Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce works to promote agriculture overall, to manage invasive species, to register and regulate pesticides, seeds, and fertilizers, to ensure a fair marketplace in pricing and commercial scales, to inspect motor fuel, to protect the public's food supply, and to engage in additional state and federal regulatory roles. The mission of MDAC is to support and apply necessary regulations to agriculture-related businesses within the state and to promote Mississippi's products throughout both the state and the rest of the world for the benefit of all Mississippians. Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce ensures equity in the consumer marketplace by inspecting petroleum pumps. How many of y'all have gassed up this week and saw the little stickers there with our state on them? There, that's us. That means we have checked the pump and it's giving you the right quality, the right amount, and the price for the price that you're paying. And trust me, if we could change the prices, we would. But how many of you have been to the grocery store in the past week and you've looked at the scales, maybe you put your vegetables or your fruits up on there and you've seen the little sticker there, that's us. We've checked the stores and the retail establishments and also inspect the scales at weigh stations, stockyards, and railways. We protect farmers, ranchers, and ag producers statewide by investigating agricultural-related thefts and enforcing law pertaining to agribusiness and livestock brands. The agency works tirelessly to promote Mississippi to Mississippians and to the rest of the world. We always say that the best products in the entire world are right here in Mississippi, and we manage several programs specifically designed to increase awareness of Mississippi ag products. You've heard a lot today about our state branding initiative, Genuine Mississippi, and the great work it does to support and promote Mississippi ag products and the ag-related businesses. We support local agritourism operations, farm-to-school, farmers market registries, livestock and grain market news, online market portals, and the list just goes on and on. We're a lot more than cows and plows out here, ladies and gentlemen. I promise you that. But why write a book about it? Why take all of this time and all of this research to write down the history of the Department of Agriculture and Commerce? Why? Because each and every one of the people that the MDAC touches daily has a story. They have a job that they need to get to and a car to put gas in. They have a family that they need to feed healthy, affordable meals to. They have a life here in Mississippi. They have a past, they have a present, but most importantly, they have a future. The history of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture is not just the history of Mississippi, but of each and every one of us. The citizens, the Mississippians. Each and every page tells the story of how through a series of events, legislative acts, years and years of hard work and many hard decisions formed and molded the history of our great state. The MDAC has had a hand on every single major event in Mississippi history for the past 117 years. It has had an impact on every person that has lived in over the last century. But why write a book about it? Because it still impacts us today. How many times have you gone to the Coliseum? How many times have you been there and you've seen a concert there? Oh, my slides have not been moving. There we go. All right. There we go. How many times have you been to the Coliseum? How many times have you walked through, maybe you've taken your grandkids to a WWE match, or you've gone to Disney on Ice, or maybe you watched a family member graduate right there in the Coliseum. Maybe you've walked down the midway of the Mississippi State Fair. Maybe you've gotten yourself a corn dog or a funnel cake, and you've ridden some of the rides and made such great memories. Maybe you've gone to see a family member taking your kids to show their livestock down at the livestock barns during the Dixie National Rodeo, and you've seen the cowboys and the cowgirls at the greatest show on dirt. But more importantly than that, when you go to the grocery store, when you pump your gas at the gas station, when you go into your house and you get in your bed and you're able to pull the covers up and you get comfortable, all of that is thanks to Mississippi agriculture. All of that is thanks to the brave men and women that farm the fields and provide for the Mississippians. Mississippi agriculture impacts each and every one of us. And let me tell you, folks, it's had an impact on me. That's my grandfather right there. I called him Papa. He was 92 years old when he passed away and only 3 years prior, he was still plowing in the fields. He was out there on his single plow with his mule, and he was out there plowing. He got up each and every morning, he put on his overalls, and he went out and he did what it needed to be done for that day. That's Mississippi agriculture. He believed in 3 things: praying to the good Lord, reading the Farmer's Almanac, and looking at the Mississippi Market Bulletin twice a month on the 1st and 15th. He believed in it. He surely did. That's a testament to what Mississippi agriculture means. Claude and I were talking before we went down to the farmer's market there, and we were having a meal together and just sharing the time and just preparing ourselves for this event. And he started talking about his dad, Mr. Ray, who's here today. And Claude's parents, Ray and Joe Nash, are here, and he said that it's a hard life on a farm. Many times Mr. Ray would be up if the equipment shut down. He would get up and he would work on it well past midnight and get up the next morning and do it all again, day after day after day. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why we wrote this book, to celebrate the history of Mississippi agriculture. Mississippi agriculture is long days, sore backs, calloused hands used to plant the seeds of success for our state. It took generations of farmers, ranchers, growers, and planters getting up each and every morning, rain or shine, cold or scorching hot, to do what had to be done to take care of their land and their family. It was not always easy. Sometimes the storms came, the winds blew, and all that was left was flattened fields and mangled pieces of sheet metal. Sometimes the cows didn't take up. Sometimes everything fell apart, but Mississippi agriculture did not stop. It kept moving forward, doing what it took to keep on keeping on. That is what Mississippi agriculture is. That is the history of the Department of Agriculture and Commerce. We have reason to celebrate Mississippi's history and its future. We have reason to be proud of our state and all it has accomplished. That is the purpose of which we have gathered here today, to celebrate our history, to celebrate our heritage. And just like the Department of Agriculture and Commerce, I hope that you thank a farmer. I hope that you protect and support Mississippi's #1 commodity, #1 industry, and keep Mississippi agriculture strong for the following generations. Thank you so much for letting us be here today. We'll now take some questions. Give us just a second to get up here on stage. Thank you so much.
We have just a couple of minutes for questions. If anybody has one, raise your hand. We'll bring the mic to you. Let everybody get on stage.
I guess this question is for any one of you. Was there some sort of state agency or state organization that did a part of the functions of the Agriculture and Commerce Department before, whatever, 1916?
No, sir. Oh, just asking what state agency took place? No, not particularly. It was not an organized state organization. There was not a division or any type of agency that was doing that beforehand. It's funny that the Department of Agriculture actually started as the Department of Agriculture and Immigration. And that was a direct result of all of the historical parts of that time during the late 1800s and the Reconstruction coming out of the Civil War. And so that they decided that it was time for the state to have an organized body in order to take care of that.
What about it? Hello?
We can hear you, brother.
What about Mississippi State University? They were there from 1898 or so forth. Was there anything up there that took part of the place that later became the Agriculture and Commerce?
Yes, sir. Actually, there is. In fact, to this day, Mississippi State University houses our BPI location. That's our Bureau of Plant Industry, and we also work very closely with our chemistry lab there. So though they did not take on our responsibilities for Mississippians and what we did, they certainly have been a partner. Mississippi State has certainly been a partner to our agency since the beginning. Yes, sir.
We couldn't do what we do without Mississippi State University and Extension, and a lot of the duties that we have in terms of data collection and publication of that, we partner with Mississippi State for that, so we're not duplicating efforts, and it's been a great relationship, I'll have to say, really. But yeah, it was in the early 1900s. Farm Bureau just celebrated 100 years of their history, Mississippi Farm Bureau Federation. It was at that time, about 100 years ago, a little more than that, people began to think we really got to focus on agriculture for the purpose of food security and going into the world wars and all of that. That seems to be the driving force. Claude, you want to add anything to that?
I had a question about 16 section land, what year it was instituted, and does your department oversee that?
Okay, we do not have anything to do with 16th section land. That is a Secretary of State function. It is put into the Constitution, and those 16th section lands are designed for educational purposes. There's 640 acres per section. That section has its purpose for education, and then it's the Constitution. I'm pretty sure, I think it's the Constitution, I know it is. Our state law puts it under the Secretary of State for management. So they manage if it's not being used for education, then it's leased by the school board for timber, for farming and so forth. Good question. But we don't have a thing to do with it. Thank the Lord.
Please say a little bit about the relationship of the State Department to the county offices, and also what did you find out about in the 1960s, there started to be black candidates for the Agricultural Stabilization and Conservation Service county committees and community committees. What did you find out about that?
So those county committees are actually under the United States Department of Agriculture. The Farm Service Agency has county committees that are assembled in every county, and they're electing county leadership. So that's through USDA and Farm Service Agency. And yes, we've seen growing participation of minorities, African Americans and others at that level. And that's a great partnership. Although we are a state agency, the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce, we do partner with USDA and the Farm Service Agency on a regular basis, and soil and water conservation for that matter, on a lot of the same issues. But thank you for that.
We have come a little past the top of another hour. I appreciate you all being here today for this program. We have copies of the book for sale. I've read it. I really enjoyed it. It's a great look back at the history of the Department of Agriculture and Commerce. I hope that you will all come back next week when we'll have History's Lunch with Emily Irwin-Jones and her look at the Delta Chinese. But for now, help me thank Commissioner Andy Gipson, Claude Nash, Hannah East, and Jared Vardaman for this terrific program today.
And I'm sorry, one quick thing, Chris. Commissioner will be over here signing these books if you